Okay, I think we are rolling. Deadly Tarantula Girl with a lurker in the background. Coming to you from my home. Let's see, let me mute this other one. I am here today with a very special guest. He is the owner and director of the Monkey Island Rescue, as well as the owner and operator of MidwestTongs.com, Mr. Dana Savorelli. Hello, Dana.
How are you?
I am so great. How are you doing today?
Hey, we live far away, but I think you gave me your cold somehow. I'm not sure how.
Oh, that's terrible. Yes, so Dana and some of his monkeys are actually under the weather today, but they agreed to meet with us anyway and spend a little bit of time with us this afternoon. Dana is an amazing, amazing man, and I couldn't say enough about him. But he's done some film work that was on Scaly Adventures. He's worked with Nat Geo. He's actually sponsored to send a student to Peru for like biological studies. He's a skydiver and a pilot, and just an all-around amazing guy. So today we were going to focus on the Monkey Island Rescue Zoological Sanctuary. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I've messed with primates and venomous snakes since about 12 years old. And, I go back and look at the pictures when you're a little kid and you're doing these crazy things that everybody thought you was nuts. And we didn't have any way of getting information like the internet, which is so powerful now. You could ask people questions. We just had to figure it out as we went, try to talk to zookeepers. Uh, and there was times that zoos were letting snakes just die because they didn't even know how to take care of them. They was
Right.
easy to replace at one time many, many years ago. Nobody wants to admit it, but that's the truth,
Right.
especially king cobras and things like that.
Well, and not just replace them, but replace them with more wild caught specimens.
Absolutely, over and over and over. That's the only way they knew to do it at the time. And now that we got the internet, there's tons of other people that may have done some of these things that can share information, put it together, and everybody benefits that way. But back then, we didn't really have anything, so I was trying to work my way through it and figure it out. With the snakes, I had a really cool guy I met, Roy Ingeldorf, way back in the day. And, Roy has mentored lots of people in reptiles. And he had one that he really mentored well, clear back from, like 12 years old on. And that person was me. And he took me everywhere with him. And I was never pushed aside for a business deal or whatever. I was in the middle of everything. Um,
So
he was
that
like
was
a,
in the Kansas City area, right?
that's correct.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I was young back then, 13 or so. And me and Roy was doing business with a gentleman by the name of Bob Berdella. Well, if you do a little research on the name Bob Berdella was a serial killer in Kansas City.
Oh my
And Bob
gosh.
Berdella had lured people over to his house and killed many of them, did experiments with them with ketamine and all kinds of crazy stuff. A friend of mine actually busted him. Ashley Hearns was involved in that bust and wrote a book on it. And there was a lot of stuff. I've had him speak on it before. Very interesting thing about that whole case. Uh, but it was really funny because he picked me up by myself, took me back to that house that he slaughtered those people with at 13 years old. And I was used to people like Roy. Roy was a little bit older, either had kids or a wife or a girlfriend or something. I thought it was interesting. We could walk into this big house with showcases in the front room, which was different as well. And very eerie, very quiet. Went upstairs, had a beautiful collection of snakes. Next room over, rodents all set up. And it was kind of interesting because all of our friends, as we used to, buy and sell and hustle reptiles and animals, we were always trying to work our way up the ladder, whether it was us having to be with animals, people do it with houses, cars, all kinds of
Right.
hobbies. We were doing the same thing. I was pretty young, and this is all documented. I remember my ex-wife found the book, and I wrote all this information down: what I traded, how I got it, what I got out of each trade. Anyway, a year or so later, we see this thing pop up on the news about this guy jumping out, going through a glass window with naked with a dog collar on.
Oh my gosh.
That opened up the investigation of the Bob Berdella case. So it might be something interesting for viewers to take a look at and see. But I mean, it goes to show you what a small world we live in, and how fine the lines are between, life and death sometimes.
So
I didn't have any problems with the guy at all. He
I
gave me
was
no.
gonna ask, did you get like a major creep out vibe from him?
It was different, going in the house with no kids, nobody, quiet, everything quiet. It was different, I will admit. They eventually found skulls, human skulls that he was selling and stuff.
Oh my
He
gosh.
had a company called Bazaar. Now, I don't know if that was at the time that this was going on exactly, or a few years later. And there was a bunch of research done on him, and eventually they found out clear back in college he was doing bizarre things.
Did they
And
find out if were those skulls of his victims?
they were human skulls. Yeah, they were. I don't remember the details of it, because there was so much stuff going on with that. I didn't have any problems with him, but it was a very interesting thing. And probably nobody in that world even knows that he was involved in reptiles, which is another thing that, when they wrote the book and stuff, nobody knew anything about that, which is kind of interesting. It's real interesting when you're buying and selling and hustling animals, or anything else as far as that goes. You usually put your price up. The guy cuts you down some, you meet in the middle somewhere, whatever the deal is,
Right.
throwing in a pair of shoes, whatever it takes to make the deal. And we've all done this stuff. Well, it was interesting about him that was totally different than anybody else that I dealt with, is he would pay exactly what you asked, never ask a question. Always pay top dollar, never ask a question. And that was one thing different than him and everybody else. And we was dealing with people like Bob Clark and, stuff like that as well. But,
right.
This guy was very different. But that's just a tidbit of some snake information back in the day that me and Roy, I remember being out by Roy's car, and he said, "Did you see that guy on TV?" And we was like, "Oh my God, this is a serial killer, this guy turned out to be." So it's interesting what life brings sometimes, and the small picture that we all kind of actually share and live in.
That is really wild. So do you have any idea if he was killing people during the time that you and Roy were interacting with him?
Not to my knowledge. I think it went on a little bit later, but I don't know. You'd have to do some research and check the time frames. I don't know if that was an absolute fact. I don't believe it was, but there was some bizarre stuff going on when he was in college. Supposedly they would do some fundraisers or something, show what the college kids, put on little tents, and they'd have their own little skits they would do. And one of the investigators told me that he was really smart, highly intelligent guy, and he would set a egg in one person's hand, and he would also put a baby chick in the other hand. And he would show a film, and I don't know what the details of the film was, but it was designed to override the mind, to where you would clench your fist no matter what. And some girls were in there, and they were crushing this baby bird and the egg at the same time, so that, and they ended up shutting it down, because they were killing these little baby birds and stuff. And it was all off of him mind tricking them. And I know when the investigators worked with him, I remember they put him up on a higher chair. There was differences in temperatures, the way they interviewed him. Lots of very bizarre things that went on with that case.
Interesting.
And here I'm 13 years old going in a house with this guy. So luckily, nothing happened to me. Interesting.
Wow. So do you remember at all what kind of the MO of his victims were? Boys, girls, kids, adults?
Mainly boys, I believe, teenagers, mainly kids that appeared to be homeless or didn't seem to have ties, which of course I did,
Yes.
And maybe that, if anything was going on at that time, maybe that was part of the issue. He never gave me any trouble at all. He was fine with me. I never had any issue with the guy, but that's how close I've got to be to a serial killer and had no idea of it.
And you guys interacted with him pretty regularly, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, several times. I mean, he was a customer. He's just another snake guy like everybody else was, We didn't intertwine with each other than doing deals, and that was really about it. But it's, like I said, kind of a small world sometimes when you see things in life like that. I've got to do a lot of cool things in life, I'm getting older, slowing down. The Gibbons keep me tied down. I got 5 girls in the house running around. And I enjoy it, but it does tie you down. And I like to always tell people monkeys and apes and stuff are very interesting animals, but in general, they do not make good pets at all. And the people, I sacrificed 7 years of my life to do what I've been doing with these apes, literally. I was jumping out of airplanes, flying ultralights, going to Sri Lanka, India, working on snake bite projects. I get up and go anywhere, anytime. Can't do that when you're, literally the parent or whatever.
Caregiver. Yes.
Caregiver, however you want to look at it. Do they look at me as mom or dad? But these animals had to be pulled the day they were born. So I was feeding every 90 minutes, 24/7. That's a lot of dedication.
Wow.
I know what you women go through that us guys never pay any attention to. As a child rearing of a human's very similar to what it is on these little gibbons.
Well, and they have a lot of, being a higher intelligent animal, they have a lot of emotional needs as well as physical needs that need to be met.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've got one gibbon that had cataracts show up and some other weird things, had jaundice real bad, and I just kept it going and kept it going. And even to this day, she can see now, but they did have to take the cataracts out. And that was a big surgery. Scaly Adventures filmed that live on from KU. They did a bunch of information on it. It was very interesting when you see like 15 different veterinarians and students and everybody involved. They said it had never been done in the United States. It had been done once in Thailand with an animal like that, but it was a much older animal. It was what they did is took the lens out. She wasn't a good candidate to put a lens in. It went from about a 10% problem to about a 40% problem if we would put the lenses in. She can't see quite as good immediately right up against her, but she can see further out. So she may have to feel for things a little bit or look for something if it's within a foot from her. But other than that, she can play and wrestle and fight and do everything just like the others and be part of the Gibbon family that she couldn't be prior to that.
Interesting.
So that was a cool experience getting to be involved in that. We had one here a while back, one of the older ones swallowed a little piece of steel that was about 3/4 of an inch by 1/4 inch thick by about 1/2 an inch wide.
Oh, no.
A piece that held onto the cage. And usually with these animals, monkeys are pretty stout, especially these type, and baboons and stuff like that as well. Usually give a couple of shots, and if they're puking or having a problem, a couple of days, it's gone. I mean, their immune systems make us look ridiculous as far as their ability to survive. And she was having problems. She'd eat real good, everything act fine, and then boom, crazy vomiting, just wipe out everything she ate. I thought, what is going on? So then I started watching body weight, which is another thing about animals when you're working with them. If you think there's any problem, start weighing everything and keep an eye on the body weight. It's hard to see sometimes, but that tells a lot of stories, body weight, temperatures, things like that. So this was, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago, something like that. And so finally she dropped about 20% of her body weight. And I said, no,
Oh, wow.
Time to go to the vet. We got to figure out what's up. I want to get some x-rays and blood work and start narrowing this down. As soon as we did her x-ray, you could see this thing in her stomach.
Oh.
It stood out like a sore thumb, and I knew right then what we were dealing with. So we knocked her on down. The vet opened her up, and we got video of it. I'll have to show you sometime the video of taking it out of her stomach. And it would only took him about 10 minutes, but it took about 20 minutes because he had to work that piece of steel down to the lower part of the stomach, because we pulled the stomach out of the below the rib cage. We pulled it on the outside so we could cut it. We don't want any of them fluids to leak back into the stomach cavity. That would be a real problem. So then we popped it. He popped it out of there and stitched her all back up, and we stapled her up and tried to think, oh my God, what are we going to do with her now? The aftercare is the biggest thing then once we got this fixed.
Right.
She's already somewhat weak already. So she stayed with me 24/7 for at least 2 weeks. Me or my secretary pretty well had her hands in our hands all day long, in our lap, watching TV, whatever, to keep her from messing with that. And put her in a onesie so she wouldn't be able to pick at it quite as much. Because if you get an infection and it's in the torso area like that, that's not a good thing.
Right.
That was a big thing, was the aftercare, and I'd never want to go through it again, but what if I needed to? Because it totally takes out a few weeks of your life completely.
Wow.
But they're all healed up and ready to go, and She's up to 20% over the body weight that she was. So, you know, that's just dedication and working with animals, but you have to give it your all. You know, you can't stop and go hang out with your friends for a day or two and play down at the lake. So I don't suggest everybody getting into it because it really takes away from your life.
So how did you start getting into primate rescue?
I got into primates, you know, at about 12 or 13, about the same time as I was dealing with venomous snakes. And we just kind of worked our way through it, learning about it. Primate rescue, I bought a farmhouse, and it had 10 acres, and it was already designed for primates. They had been a breeding facility. And so I bought that place, redid a bunch of different things, and started breeding some of them. And we're selling them and so forth, you know, just like we had the snakes at one time. Then you would see 3 to 5 years later on a macaque. Normally, that's about the time they start coming in season or start their period or whatever you want to call it. And at that time, you usually see that attitude change, very similar to the way you see a human being's attitude change at a female or a male at the, you know, 12 to, depending on which one, but 12 to 15 years old. So they get a little cocky and start getting meaner and tougher and challenging and so forth. Okay, at that time, normally the people would bring the monkeys back and they'd say, could you please take it? It's eating us up. We can't deal with it anymore. So then we were taking care of the animals for another 20 plus years. So I said, I don't like this. We're not going to be a part of this system of selling the animals and then getting them right back. It just, something didn't seem right to me morally. And so the only thing that ever breeds around here anymore, most of them are all retired breeders, too old to breed, except for the gibbons, and that's because they're endangered species. And if they breed, they breed. I wouldn't never fix an endangered species. But most of them, really, it's almost a retirement home, to be quite honest. You know, animals that have nowhere to go, animal control, or the state, or the feds, or whoever gets hold of us. And we probably got about 250 animals out here, maybe 40 primates or so.
Wow.
Many as 100 primates at one time.
What all are you housing?
Oh, a couple of baboons, mainly macaques, many different species of macaques. Probably the most endangered is the lion-tail macaque. Got Java macaques, rhesus macaque, pigtails, celebes, a couple of different celebes, crested and non-crested. Then we got some kinkajous. We had a kinkajou die the other day that I rescued 22 years ago. I had 3 of them, and 2 of them are still alive. But I mean, eventually everything dies off. It's just the cycle of life.
Right.
It's not the fun part, but it's the part you have to deal with if you're going to keep animals. So it does happen. You know, things eventually die off. And some of my snake collections over 20-something years old. I lost my last taipan in the last year. Used to have 4 of those. Used to have, you know, several big black mambas. I'm down to 1 black mamba. But like I said, them collections were 20 years plus. So just try to give them the best life you can. Try not to get bit, and you know, stay safe. And you know, we're animal people. You just do what you feel is the right thing for these guys.
So I know that people kind of have this fantasy about keeping primates. They're so cute and they're so funny and they do all this interesting stuff, which is true. But I've also heard that adopting a primate is very much like basically adopting a toddler that will never grow up, or possibly even like a person with disabilities that's essentially never going to get out of the diaper, drooling, biting, and crying stage. What would you say to that?
Yeah, we refer to it as a 2-year-old forever, basically. And that's basically what you're saying, and that's the truth. I can't tell you on the gibbons. I've been raising them for 7 years. I've had gibbons for, you know, 15 plus years, but not babies. So I'll be able to tell you more as time goes along, but they'll get a little bit challenging. There's, you know, sometimes they have good days and bad days, just as we do. I change an average of 7,300 diapers a year.
Wow.
Average around 20 a day, and work and still maintain, you know, other things that have to go on in life to keep these guys alive. We probably got 10 alligators right now, I think, something like that.
American alligators?
American alligators, yeah.
Do you keep any other crocodilians?
No, the American alligator is so tough. If the temperatures fluctuate, they can handle about anything.
Hmm.
The regular crocodilians is a little bit different. They couldn't do what the American alligator does when it comes to temperature drops.
So
And
how cold do they get and still thrive and not get sick or die?
I've had them out in the pond before in pens, and I was out of town one time a little longer than I planned on, and a lot of times that type of situation, I deal with it, and nobody else does because it can be somewhat dangerous, and I don't want
Right.
just anybody dealing with it. So at that point, I would, well, actually, we had a freeze come up, and the alligators were putting their nose up through the ice. And they said, well, I think they're dead. I said, don't assume that. I said, an American alligator's tougher than you believe. He can bring his body down to survive still.
Hmm.
The killer on that is, with my experience, is you never want to warm them up fast. Everybody
Right.
thinks warm everything super fast. You got to be careful with that. And if you look at humans that have went into water, they bring it up in a graduated manner so the body don't shock and crash. And we had a little 6-month-old baby about 5 miles from here. A guy decided they couldn't keep it no more and threw the 6-month-old baby in the pond, went and told the police. And the police shot up there, jumped in that pond, and rescued that baby. And the only reason that baby lived is because the water was cold and completely recovered, which I can't even imagine any human being doing that to another, especially a child. But, bizarre things do happen if you look at the news. I mean, we live
Oh
in a
yeah.
crazy world. So those alligators, if you bring them up about 5 degrees a day, kind of steadily, you can bring them right back up to temperature. Mine are probably in about 60 degrees right now, 60 to 65 degrees. And they're just kind of in a chilled out mode. They won't want to eat, but they're so fat they wouldn't have to eat for a year anyway. So that's good. So it's not life threatening to them. I've got a Burmese python that's about 250 pounds, that's 18 feet long. That was another rescue. And she stops eating about September, October, maybe as late as November if it's warm out, and then she may not pick up until March to May, and then she'll engage in feeding again.
Wow.
I got her from a farmer. A guy was 75 years old. And everybody says it's a big snake. Most big snakes are 8 feet long, and they're telling you it's 15 feet. And that's just the way it is, in the snake world in general. Well, this one here truly was 18 feet when I picked her up. We weighed her, and she was 2 1/4 at that time. That was 9 years ago. And the only thing he fed her that she would eat was chickens.
Hmm.
And normally a Burmese that big is 50 to 100 pounds heavier than that, quite often in captivity, because they're eating rabbits. Rabbits, a fattier uh, food source. So usually the body weights are heavier. So I'd say realistically, she may be a little lean, but she's probably healthier in general.
Wow. What's her
So
name? Does she have a name?
no, I've got so many animals. I don't even, people get mad when I name the animals because I don't name them real good anymore. They usually got lots of nicknames. It's usually if
Yeah.
I'm in trouble doing stuff. Because the gibbons, literally, some of these have never been in a cage. They have their own room. Uh, the farmhouse down here, half of it they run freely themselves. It's just you have to child-proof it, gibbon-proof in this case, but what like a human would do with their child. There's certain areas you don't want them to get into and lock up certain cabinets, and either that or they. I've watched them go in the bathroom and one of them grab the end of the toilet paper and take off through 3 rooms carrying that, stringing the toilet paper 30 feet out, run with that toilet paper. So
Oh
they'll do
yeah.
crazy stuff. It's just fun and games to them.
So we've got some people watching. We have Elijah Fuller, Robert Wilson, Gabs Tarantula, Susan Henning. Some people are commenting. Tavian's World of Reptiles, Cat Lover, Meowth. So Bob the Biker is commenting that it's kind of the same idea and commitment with parrots. And I
Oh yeah,
totally agree with that. And a lot of them live really long lifespans.
yeah, definitely with the parrots. And a friend of mine does parrot rescue and has for many, many years. And I've always respected, how hard she works at that. The problem is they're going to probably outlive us if they're taken care of. And you get that with the tortoises too.
Right.
You know, so you have to set up your will or whatever to carry on the tradition if you wish for that to happen. Um, I see a lot of times, and that's how we end up with animals. Sometimes people pass away, and next thing you know, they don't they've never handled the animal. They don't know what to do with it. And we get calls to see if that we would take them. So there's a lot of applications that are legitimate applications for the animal to be given up.
Right.
In many cases, sometimes it's just people get stuff and get tired of it and throw it aside. And that does happen.
So, what would you say was your toughest case as far as having to give treatment or care? What species?
Man, that's a tough one because I've had to do so many things. When they strain or get diarrhea real bad, sometimes the rectum comes all the way out.
Wow.
To be able to put that rectum back in safely and to be able to be successful with it is kind of an interesting thing. I think I had a little of that. If you go to Monkey Island Rescue on Facebook, start going back a few years, you'll probably see one of those that I put back together. One of the hardest was that Gibbon, just keeping her from touching them stitches for so long.
Yeah.
Because it was a torso wound basically where we had to cut her, and you just don't want a big infection getting into something like that. I had one that had a slash across his palm, all the way across the palm, a great big Celebes macaque, huge canines. I mean, he could take you apart. And I thought, how are we going to ever get that hand to heal? How will he leave that alone? So we ran up to the vet on that one, sewed him all up, and he never bothered that hand at all. And it completely healed perfectly. I put him back under anesthesia, took the stitches out, and everything was fine. And I would have lost money on that bet. I would have never believed that he'd leave that hand completely alone. It slashed the whole palm open. But they can slice and dice each other. If I took somebody in our monkey facility, the males will start attacking the females just to show their dominance from another person coming in that building.
Wow.
So you can't just take anybody in there, especially if they're enclosed for the winter time and the caging is smaller. Just as humans, you lock us up in smaller rooms and put more people in, and next thing you know, the violence gets, people's tempers are shorter.
Right.
Get us out in big cages and get sunshine and life, going on. When we're locked up in the wintertime, it's kind of tough on everybody. And we've had a pretty tough winter here this year as well.
Yes. Yeah, the U.S. has experienced some crazy winter storms. Luckily, we've only kind of gotten blowback or backlash from it. We just had some tornadoes, but yeah, nothing compared to what you guys are going through. So, are you in a mood to show us any animals by chance?
Oh, the camera may be a little jerky, but yeah, if you guys want to see a few things, I'll walk you through a couple of things.
Wonderful.
We try to put this on a selfie stick, which I never do, but if you give me a minute, we'll make it happen here. Give me just a minute.
So Dana's flying solo. Usually he has at least one assistant with him, but he was so generous to agree to film today, even kind of despite some extenuating circumstances. So I do appreciate that so much.
Okay. Let me run out here. I'll tell you a cool animal that a lot of people like to see is a sloth.
Yes.
This was a huge rescue I did way back in '98, and she's still with me. And I've kind of brung her inside a little bit just because out in the monkey building it'd get a little bit cooler, and she was getting so old she started staying on the ground. Sloths don't normally stay on the ground. So I thought, it may be too much for her, as she's getting older. So let me open up her cage and see if we can wake her up for a second. Now, can you see her there? Let's see if we can turn around. She got a bunch of banana on her face. Let's see if we can hold still, honey. It's kind of hard for me to see on the screen. Hopefully you guys are seeing it. Let me see if I can get her to take a grape. She likes grapes. We kind of built this for her. And let me know if you can't see it, and I'll adjust the camera because I'm trying to look and do a couple of different things. But she likes grapes. Are you seeing her okay?
Yes.
Not real high speed. You don't get that out of a sloth.
She's adorable.
And people think that they can't hurt you. A sloth can bite bad if they want to. She's pretty chilled. We don't really push her on anything. I kind of let the animals be the animals and leave it at that. But we put this little hammock in here so she could be up off the ground without having to directly hang all the time. And interesting creature. I don't know why I like sloths so much. I just think they're pretty cool. But you can see her sitting there in her hammock. Let me grab her one more grape. I think she's in the grape mood today. Now here's something you don't see very often. If I can look down here in the bottom of her cage, can you see where she's pooped down there?
Yes.
That's where she pooped. And the sloth usually comes down out of the trees or foliage about once a week, they say, to use the bathroom. She goes about twice a week, so she's a little more regular than a normal sloth, I guess. But she's one of my favorite animals. You know, we don't get out here and mess with her and handle her or stress her. We just watch her for what she is and feed her. Give her what she needs, and she'll be up roaming around, teasing the dogs and everything else in the middle of the night a lot of times.
So what kind of a sloth is she?
Two-toed.
Two-toed?
Uh-huh.
Where are they native to? Hi, sweetie.
The South America, Central America.
And how old is she?
I couldn't tell you. It was a rescue. I thought she was old enough. She was going to die old age when I brought her home. That was 22 years ago. And look, she's going to try to grab. Thinking, what is that? All right, now don't drag my camera down. But that's a sloth. I think that's a super cool animal to see. Everybody likes seeing a sloth. I mean, that's a unique animal. Let me go outside here and show you a couple of things. I don't know how much noise we're going to have with other animals or geese going off or anything, but we'll see what we got here. Now, sometimes I go riding around in a three-wheeler and I take an eagle owl with me that I raised. And this is the machine we go riding in. I don't know if you can see that very well.
Wow.
But down here is right here's what he perches on. And this was all custom made. My machinist made up these brackets to go on here. And then he's tethered to this. And then when my brake's off, he'll just sit right there and chill out. We go sometimes riding 3 hours a day.
Wow.
And he's been doing that since he was about 6-8 weeks old, roughly. And once again, if you go on and look at Monkey Island Rescue, you will see some of these videos. It's made it on national TV and stuff. And here you'll appreciate this, the license plate on here.
Very nice.
So you got to personalize it a bit.
So are these videos on your Facebook page or on a YouTube channel?
Could be some of each, to be honest.
Okay, I can link them both in the description box so people can look at those.
Right. I'll walk out here just a bit and show you a project I worked on a couple of years ago, and a very detailed project, but you got to have a passion for animals and enjoy things. But here we have a pole, and you can see the diameter of this pole. But if you look up, that pole was 110 feet long. We put it 12 feet in the ground and pulled wire through it and everything you can imagine. And up on the very top of this, I built a steel platform out of 1/4-inch plate steel. And I would go up, climb that pole, and go up there from anywhere from 5 to 7 hours per time hanging in a harness, and put cameras on top of that pole so I could live feed a eagle's nest that was less than 100 yards away.
Wow.
Which was really cool. And it was the first time we did it. Internet connection down away from the city isn't nearly as good. first time out was a lot of things going on. So anyway, if you go to YouTube, KC Eagle Cam, you will see some of that. And eventually the nest had got taken out by a microburst that happened in the middle of the night, like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. So I went to check the cameras to see how they were doing, because I always concerned with that kind of stuff. And I thought the camera got knocked over a little bit and moved, because it doesn't take much when you're zoomed in to move around and miss, what you're supposed to be looking at when it's a ways off. Well, come to find out, I got looking a little closer. I said, oh crap, that tree's gone. So that storm took out the tree, the nest, the eagles, everything. And this was at about 5 weeks old. And so at that time, 2 in the morning, I'm over in the storm looking for baby eagles. One was instantly dead. You could tell by the glaze in his eyes. He died instantly. The other one was just sitting there like a big 8-pound chicken. So I just snatched it up and brought it home, stuck it in the front room, took a few pictures of it and stuff, because what's the chances of that,
Right.
And those eagles at that time, I could literally sit up in my bed and look through about an 8-inch window that is about 4 feet tall. And I could see that nest and the mother feeding the babies, literally sitting up in my bed. Now, what's the chances in a lifetime of that ever happening?
That's incredible.
I thought, then I'm going to go through a lot of work and try to video these eagles before this opportunity changes in my life. And that's a very expensive pole. That's 4,000 pounds. We erected it 100 feet and put 3 guide wires on it to help stabilize it. And there's 3 cameras on top. Now the eagles have since moved about 500 yards away, and I'm videoing them right now. I was just looking at them before me and you started talking. And she's got 2 babies right now that hatched out probably 7 to 10 days ago. I would have to go back through and analyze the video a little closer to see when they started feeding or started paying more attention to the nest compared to the eggs.
Wow.
But there's 2 little baby eagles over there now. So it's cool to still see. The neighbor was getting so many people coming over, bothering him about seeing them. They asked us to take the live cam down, which about killed me. But, you try to get along with your neighbors and do what you think's right, at least. So let's go over here and I'll show you a baboon that's been around here for about 20 years.
Wow.
Used to ride on my back while I was riding my bike on the road. But she's 60 pounds now, and if a dog or something comes by, she'll launch me the bike and everything if she's spooked. And probably eat a dog up. So
what do they eat? What do you feed them?
Well, the primates, we feed Zupreme, which is a primate diet, just like you would have dog food. Zoos have different animal feeds
Right.
for things like that. So the basic primate diet, and really these guys can eat 80 pounds of bananas a day, basically. Now we'll see if she'll come up here. What's up, boo-boo?
There she is.
Hi, what you doing, huh? What's my girl doing? And she, a lot of times, will have different reporters down or something. And it's funny because I'll have the guys come up and put their arm around me, and she'll eyeball them because, once again, I'm supposed to be the alpha male.
Right.
And she'll eyeball them. But you let a female put their hands on me and watch what she does. She'll do a backflip 6 feet in the air, shake the whole cage, and let them know that that's a big no-no. And she knows the difference between a male and a female in a heartbeat.
Interesting.
I don't know if you can see her grooming very well because the picture's kind of small.
Yes, we can see her.
Yeah, and if I pull my sleeve up, she will probably come up here and start doing my arm or my hair or whatever. And this is a social thing that monkeys do. People say, oh, they're getting bugs out of there. No, it's the mimic of that, basically, of getting bugs out of there, so to speak. You can see she's wanting to get to my back. And she's just wanting to be social.
Wow.
But yeah, I could sit out here for an hour or more, and she would just lay beside me and groom and, just be very affectionate. She loves attention, and she was raised in the house at one time. and they just started going outside probably about, I don't know, Thursday or Friday, something like that. So they're very happy in comparison to having to be inside, which I hate to have them inside. It's just our temperatures get so cold. I'm not going to have them, getting frostbite or anything like that, which could happen.
So, what temperatures can they tolerate?
Usually the monkey building I keep in the 60s in general. But that monkey building's like a bunker. It has concrete walls, even separating each cage, like 4-inch form concrete, which is a very expensive process to do. And it was built back in the 80s, and just for that building was over 125,000 back in the 80s.
Wow.
So, probably it was costing us about $50 a day just to heat that building.
Oh my gosh.
Months, to give you an idea, because you can't choke out all the air because you have urine smells and all that, and you want the water when you're cleaning to dry, and so you're circulating air. So it's, you're fighting several elements to try to create a reasonable balance for survival for everybody.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because you keep several species of primates in one building, right?
Right, but nobody's hardly in the same cage or anything.
Right.
There may be 1 or 2 in the same cage. Interesting thing, I have a couple of gibbons. The parents are the ones that are in the house. They're in with lemurs. And them and the lemurs are buddies. The male gibbon would tease the lemurs all the time. He'd grab a tail and hold it and just jack with them until they would try to get him. And it was just back and forth, chase back and forth, enjoying hanging out with each other.
That's cute.
But this is an olive baboon. She's probably around 20 plus years old, and probably in the 60-pound range, I'd guess. It's a female.
So is she toward the end of her lifespan?
No, they'll probably go up into their 30s in general. We rescued one, the same species, out of Michigan, way up in the top of Michigan. About an 82-year-old guy had one in a trailer, and it had he had it in a barn or something, went in the barn, and it wouldn't let him go for like 2 days because it doesn't want you to leave. They're affectionate,
wow.
but they're also powerful. So he had called everywhere, and trying to place an animal like that is very hard to do quite often. Many people said they would take it, and it never worked out. So I went up to get him, and it was a sad situation. Although he thought he had the greatest cage in the world, it was a bunch of doors and stuff all nailed together. And the only thing that animal could see out of with light, and the light in the room, was about a 5-inch hole. And that was the only outside connection he had. Now, I didn't know how big he was. I could see his forearms were bigger than mine. So I thought, man, he's a big boy. So we took and actually I went up and talked to animal control because I'm pretty pro law enforcement and try to do the right thing when I'm handling these kind of situations. And we went in to talk to the guy about getting this animal because it was in kind of a remote area. And he said, yeah, we have people have been trying to come up here and get him for years. Nobody ever does. And it was bad enough. I sent my wife out in the car because he was insulting us that bad. And me and him had a couple of words. And I explained to him real quick, that no matter what you say, we're leaving with the animal either way.
Right.
And once he figured out I knew what I was talking about on anesthesia and all that, then he was real nice. And he said, hey, would you mind if I come down? I've never seen anything like this ever done. And there's should be pictures on Facebook that shows that baboon. He was 109 pounds. I had to get him in a full Nelson to drag him out. And it took about double the anesthesia because he was damn near double the size he should have been.
Wow.
So we get him home, put him in a big cage. He can climb all around and do everything. And that his ability to climb, he doesn't even know how to climb.
Wow.
He's been up in a box for over 8 years that was 2 feet wide by 8 feet long by approximately 4 feet high. And he had been locked up in this box for so long that he didn't even have the muscle ability to climb good. So I would take him outside. I'd have to knock him out, take him outside, put a water source to his outside cage. He would stay out there 6 to 8 months. And then when it got cold, I'd have to reverse the process. It took me 2 years to con him into climbing 2 feet over his head and walking through a tube. And eventually he did do that. And then he could go in and out and everything was fine, just like all the other monkeys. And in 2003, we seen him sitting there doing his normal thing as we're looking at the animals, and he just dropped over and died instantly on the spot from a heart attack.
Wow.
Took him to the vet immediately, cut him open, and looked at the heart. One side of the heart muscle was about 3/8 of an inch thick. The other side, you could see almost through it. There was just nothing there. So it was kind of a deal, lack of exercise and many things.
Oh.
So, you know, those things happen. You give him, you know, he got to have a lot more life than what he had at that time. So it was kind of interesting. There's stories behind every one of these guys. We could talk for hours about
Oh yeah.
different things.
Your little goat's making a cameo there in the background, a black and white goat.
Yeah, they're all kind of crowding me. They don't want to get too close to the baboon because she's liable to grab a horn and slam their head a couple times.
Oh gosh.
Just for the fun of it. But yeah, I got 5 of them right in my face here, about 6 feet away, looking at me, wondering what's going on.
That's funny.
They've already ate, but they'd be happy to eat every time you throw out food to them. But I'll step around here and see if I can see the gibbons, so you can see the parents of the babies in the house, and you can take a look at them, and we'll leave Booney alone. She's a good baby.
Bye, sweetie.
And here's the other guys. Otherwise. And I don't know if the gibbon, they're inside right now. It's kind of dull looking out here today, but I'll see if they'll come out. Usually they're outside and enjoying the weather, but come here, Gibby. Yeah, they may not come out. We'll give it just a minute here. It's hard to tell. He's back behind me.
That's a beautiful enclosure.
Yeah, they're pretty heavy duty and need it for animals like this, but come here, Gibby. Come on out here, buddy. Come here. Maybe if we give it a minute, he'll come out. But it's kind of dull out here today. It's all cloudy. I got a sweatshirt on. It's reasonable out here, a little bit chilly with the breeze, but not too bad.
I see a lemur.
Yep. But that's a white-handed gibbon ape. He came from a private zoo that had him. They kind of had their mascot animal for like 40 years, and that was the first animal they ever got was a gibbon, and this happened to be an offspring. And then he started getting cocky with the daddy, and they wanted to place him somewhere else. And I didn't plan on breeding him or anything. I just let him hang out with the lemurs, and hell, he used to play with spider monkeys and all kinds of stuff. And eventually, a friend of mine, they lost their male, and I ended up picking up the female. I thought she was too old to breed. I thought she was a retired breeder, but I can assure you that's not the case. At least she may be today, but she wasn't at that time, that's for sure. But we'll go inside if you want to see the babies. And you can look up stuff. There's a video of my secretary running around playing with them, and that's pretty well what it's like in the mornings. And if they look on YouTube and at least punch in the word April, but it's spelled APERL, and the word hat, and it should pop up. And last I knew, it had 1.1 million views on it at the time. But that's really about what goes on around here in the mornings with these guys. Because it's game on when they get up in the morning. Evenings, not near as bad. They're a little more chilled. Want to lay around and hang out. But there's several videos online, either under my name, Midwest Tongs, Monkey Island. And you can see as we're walking through the front room here a little bit, there's grids on the ceiling.
Yes.
And that's for the gibbons to swing and have a whole nother layer to run around on. So if you can chill out here and let me set down the phone for a second, let me turn the babies loose. We'll see if they'll come down. Hang on.
Oh, you're gonna be in the way? You wanna be in the way? Come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. Slowly down.
All right, they're all out, but they're looking at me like I'm crazy because they know something's up. They see a tripod and stuff laying around.
Oh, look at that.
That's the one that had eye surgery. Her name's Booger. And then, Mary, come here. They'll probably come over here and see what's going on. Here's another one right up over my head.
Oh my gosh.
That one's the one that had the surgery on her stomach recently, within the last 4 months. She's about 5.5, 6 years old. That one there is the matriarch. She's the oldest one. She's about 7.
Wow.
That's April. There's several videos of April out there that's got 500,000 plus hits on it and views. What you doing? Everybody's got a cold. Everybody's sniffles and coughing, and usually they shake this real easy, but in this particular case, it's really run them down. And I've tried a couple antibiotics and nothing really works, so it's probably just a viral thing. Keep some water down them, and they, it'll work out. It's just like anything else; you just don't feel like eating or doing anything. And don't be messing with my camera stuff. See this one here. What's up, babe?
They have the cutest little faces.
Yeah, and they're all white-handed gibbons. These are the blonde ones, just like the one you've seen out there. No, don't mess with that. And you can hear them. They're going to probably start hooting and hollering here in a little bit, because if they hear much talking, they'll always try to out-talk me sometimes if I think I'm on the phone or anything. But yeah, this is kind of what it's like in the evenings when I get to hang out with them and watch TV, and there'll be 4 or 5 of them laying on you, crashed out. But it's a ton of work, and a lot of people don't get that, the amount of work it takes to take care of them correctly anyway. And eventually, hopefully this year, we will get them into a big outdoor cage, and that way they can have more room, and I won't have to wrestle with them as much. I don't want them in diapers for their whole life by any means.
Right.
But I also don't want to, it's just like a kid. You wouldn't want your kid crapping and peeing all over everything, because that's what they do. They're young, and they would do things like that.
So will this group, do you intend to keep this group together now?
What's that?
Do you intend to keep this group together now if they all move to an outdoor pen?
In general, yeah. I would hate to separate them because they're so socially together with each other. But depending on, what changes, we'll see. But yeah, in general, that's my idea anyway. What are you talking about? See, she's watching you.
She is.
Here, Blondie.
They're amazing.
But a lot of this, you can see at Monkey Island Rescue, different little pieces I put on there. They're not as cool of videos as you put out, just because we don't have editing abilities really. It's throwing pieces that are raw, so they're not quite as good as some of the cool stuff you guys put together, to say the least.
Thank you. Oh, they are so cute. So I've got to ask, how often do they need their diapers changed? Or do you do like every so many hours, or do you wait till you tell there's a messy diaper, or what's the plan?
it's getting to be about 2 to 3 times a day. On the bigger ones, a couple of times in general. I mean, you could always, if they stress or something, of course, you know, they could immediately have diarrhea. You know, and people could do the same thing under enough stress. So, I'll do what we're doing here. But yeah, so basically my house is like built in the 80s, and I'm not doing anything down here to it until these apes are out of here, because I'd be redoing it otherwise.
Oh, yeah.
So I kind of live in a cage in a roundabout way.
I can see that.
Yeah.
So how young is the youngest animal in this group?
What's that again?
How young is the youngest animal in this group?
About probably a little less than 2 years old. I'll show you her. She's hugging a blanket. She'll hold still.
Oh.
They thought I was getting her. I was going to hurt her. Ain't nobody going to hurt her.
So do they live in one enclosure together when they are put away? Because obviously they have to be supervised when they're out.
2 of them, the 2 little ones, I usually just I let them run down here most of the time. The bigger ones, they've got their own room. That's what I was telling you. They may start covering up all the sounds here. But they all get out about 3 times a day. And I'll have them out for several hours. Hang on, I'll see if I can get a picture of the baby. That's a little one she's carrying around her blanket. She's got a little huggy blanket she likes to have.
Wow. So at what age do those animals kind of reach puberty or nearing adulthood?
Hang on just a second. I can't hardly hear you. Let me see if I can step in here away from everything. Okay, what are you saying?
So at what age do they start to mature into adulthood?
On this species, the one just started coming in heat or cycling or period, whatever you want to call it, about a week and a half ago, just a little bit. So she's about 7 years old. It's usually 7 to 9, I think, before they start coming into season. Now on the macaques, the main animals we have down there, many of the macaques are about 3.5 years old. They'll start cycling.
So do they often have to be put in different groups at that time, or are they usually happy staying with who they were grown up with?
Well, on the Gibbons, I don't know. I've never raised any of them like this before, so this is all an experience. So far, no problem. Everybody gets along. They're a solid family. If you went after one of them, they'd all eat you up for sure. In a heartbeat. I mean, that's just the way it is. Lemurs will do the same thing. They're very social about who's in their group. And see, I can try to hide out here. They'll come in. Try to get out of the way to talk, but they'll come in and hunt me down.
Wow.
But yeah, that's kind of life around here. And really, that's what Midwest Tongs funds, is all these animals around here. And if you want, I can take and you have to give me a minute. I'll have to get them back up in their room, but we can go out and see the eagle owl if you want to see an eagle owl.
Oh yeah, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, they're really pretty. Let me see if I can put this down and hustle these apes back upstairs.
Okay.
Hang on just a minute.
I've got a big dog at my feet here. My dog came in. So I'm on spring break from work, so I brought some of my classroom pets home. So I have our little pink belly sliders here.
Good girls. Good girls.
They're pretty cute. A little young pair of them. So these are usually on my desk classroom, but now they're at home, so I can give them the daily care that they need. So Bruce, this is in the way.
Stop, stop. Stop it. Come here. Come here.
Puppy, come here. Come here. Come here. Come here. You don't want to get up? You don't want to get up? You don't want to get up? He's feeling camera shy, apparently.
See, I'll let them two hang out, but I got to move a couple of pieces of equipment around.
So, let's see. We've got Silly Snakes, Robert Clay's, Kalia's World, Tabitha Jones, Simon Irk. They're all on saying beautiful animals, saying hi, saying nice. So thank you to you guys that are watching the live. Looks like we're back with Dana.
Let me run out here and we can take a look at Albert. He's a pretty bird. He's a little ornery sometimes, but not really too bad. He kind of went through that young stage or that teenage stage actually at one point. Now he acts like he's wanting to build a nest, but it's... Let's see if we can take a look here, Albert.
Ah!
What you doing, buddy?
Hi, Albert.
Here.
Look at those feet.
Now, if you look on YouTube or watch, you'll see him riding around in that slingshot. And he's a pretty boy.
So what type of bird is he?
It's called a Eurasian Eagle Owl.
Interesting. How old is he?
He's about right at a year old.
Wow. And how old was he when you got him?
He was 5 weeks when I got him. A friend of mine breeds them, and he sent him to me at 4.5 or 5 weeks, I believe it was.
So he was captive born and bred?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, they got some more eggs, I think, that are... I seen some eggs. I don't know if it's from that or the falcons. I'm not sure.
Interesting. So why would someone buy one of these animals? Do people use them? I mean, obviously it's beautiful, but are they more of a companion animal, or do people use them for falconry?
You know, I've heard of them using them for falconry, but you still have to have a falconer's license. Go back there, Albert. Go back in the room. Go back there. You're okay, buddy. But mainly, they would use them for an educational program.
Okay.
And normally the eagle owls aren't too bad in general. I've got several friends that's raised them, and I wouldn't mind getting a pair and raise them. I think they're beautiful birds. Once again, they live quite a while. You know, they may live up to 40 years. I think they've lived as long as 60 years in captivity.
Wow. So is he full grown?
Yeah, he's full grown, and your males will be about, on your birds of prey in general, are about 20 to 30% smaller than the females.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So depending on, what species of animal and all that, sometimes the males are bigger in general, but not in your birds of prey.
So somebody's saying that his ear tufts look really soft.
Oh, they
What does
are.
he feel like?
Oh, he's real soft. He's just a little bit ornery and doesn't want me to pet him much. Once I get his jesses on and everything like that and get him on a glove, he's not quite as bad. But I haven't worked with him as much. He sees me 25 times a day and talks to me all the time, but I don't usually handle him constantly by any means.
Right.
Just because there's only so much time in a day, and
Oh yeah.
we're constantly developing new equipment and new items. So I'm pretty tied up trying to share my time with everything that goes around. But
Now
he's an awesome little bird.
this is a facility that you pretty much man by yourself, don't you?
In general, my secretary has been around animals and I've taught her a ton of stuff. And if it wasn't for her, I don't know how I could hardly handle it, especially with the apes inside. She can deal with them. And she's probably the only one, not to the level that I can. I'm the whatever, however they look at me. I'm the caregiver, the mom, the dad, the whatever you want to look at it as. But she's definitely, I would say, second in line if you want to look at it that way. And I don't know if you can see up here. It's real hard to see. But there's a window up here above me. And let's see, there's that window. They're up in that window, but it'd probably be real hard to see, and the reflections are terrible. But that's the room that the bigger ones just went up to.
Oh wow.
So they'll keep an eye on me anytime or anybody that's around here, and they will check out everything that's going on. But that's kind of the way life is around here for me. And so when people are buying things from Midwest, they don't probably realize the level of their money is not just being put in somebody's pocket. It's going to a whole lot more than in most cases when you're buying from companies.
Right.
And that's either my kindness or stupidity, depending on who you're asking. If you're an animal person, they would understand that. I've had people ask me, said, why did you put so much into that eagle thing? And it's to have that experience that few people in life would ever get close to having.
Right.
And if you're an animal person, you'll understand that. A lot of people would say, all the time, money, and energy, why bother? But if you have to say that, then you wouldn't understand. You wouldn't get it.
Right.
So, I appreciate everybody that supports Midwest Tongs. I've been developing and building equipment since I was a kid, and commercially in my early 20s, like somewhere in around 82 to 85 is when I kind of got that going. And we've got a new tong coming out. That's a real cool tong. We'll get one over to you to check out. And always something going on, And the thing is, I'm an end user. That's why we make this stuff, is because I need stuff that really works. And
right.
There wasn't a lot of stuff when I was a kid. When me and Roy were hanging out, there was a Pilstrom tong way back in the day, and there was a Whitney tong way back in the day. And I had only seen the Pilstrom. And, I don't know if that company's still alive and going. We've heard some things about them possibly closing, but I don't know whether any of that's true or not. But they were one of the oldest tong companies, anywhere around.
Right. Well, I'm personally thankful for what you do, because people see that I use your materials all the time. I use your tools all the time for venomous, non-venomous, all kinds of things. We did a tour for a couple families today that had young kids, one that was aspiring to be an entomologist, and they said, can we come over? Can you show us some things? And, we had some big boas that we don't handle regularly because, they're breeding animals. And so you reach in there with a hook, kind of let them know it's, they're going to be lifted out of the cage. And those, if it saves you a big bloody bite, that's really nice. Of course, we use the tongs for feeding. And, we just use all of your stuff all the time. The venom lock, as we've used so many of your materials.
Right. Well, I appreciate all the support, because you're not only supporting me, you're supporting everything that goes on here. Couldn't be done without you and your viewers and the people that buy our equipment. And we try to treat people, like we'd like to be treated, the best that you can. And I think, if you do good things in life, good things will happen.
Well, I hope that that's true, and I agree with that personally. Well, Dana,
Right.
so how can people, obviously we're going to link your Facebook page and some of the YouTube videos and stuff so people can enjoy those. But how can people get a hold of you to order some of these supplies?
The supplies, they can always call. The main number that I'm at is 816-537-4444. We've also got a couple of 800 numbers that will come in on the same trunk line of phones. But that's the main one that I'm at. And I try to educate people, talk to people, and help them with, what it is they need. I don't really have a reason to sell stuff to people just to get them to buy it. I want to sell it to them because they need and get them the right tool.
Right.
I'd rather sell them something for half price and get them what they need than sell them, double the stuff that they won't even use. And, in general, when these people are moving snakes out of their yard, simple situations, a tong's the best way to go. A hook is something that is more of a talent to use it, understanding the animals. Quite often, these people are terrified of the animals, and I can teach a 5-year-old how to grab a snake with a tong
Right.
and safely at least get out of their area. And so we got lots of different types of tongs and more styles coming. We got a new website getting ready to come out as soon as they clean up a few other things on it. It's going to have all kinds of crazy snake bite pictures. It'll just about make you hurtle when you look at them, because some snake bites are brutal. And I think some of these people really think you can take like a booster shot and everything goes away and it's a good day. And that's not necessarily the case. And in some of these third world countries, you're losing parts of your body if you get to live, period. And we try to put that fear into people and let them know, this can be a serious situation with snake bite. So leave them alone and stay clear of them, and you won't have that problem.
Pretty amazing. So you're meeting a niche in the exotic animal world for all of us keepers all over the country, and then also meeting a huge need for these animals that are in need, and just essentially giving up your life doing it, which obviously you enjoy doing it, but it is a huge sacrifice.
Yeah. I hope this year to get the Gibbon's cage built outside, so at least I can be out there part of the time, because I've got to be around here almost all the time or within reach, because I'm not going to leave them in dirty diapers. I've seen people do all kinds of bad things. But sometimes it would be nice just to get out a little bit, and not have to plan literally by the hour. But I've done that for 7 years. Prior to that, I was jumping out of airplanes and road racing crotch rocket motorcycles, and probably good to back off of that now that I'm over 50 years old. You don't repair as good when you hit the ground doing 160 miles an hour. So I've kind of backed away from some of that just because it makes sense. And I love it. Don't get me wrong. The adrenaline, I've done that kind of stuff all my life. So people say you're crazy to do these things. Same thing with the animals. They say you're crazy. I look at it as a badge of honor. I mean, to me, when they say you're crazy, it just means you're different. And I don't want to follow the sheep off the side of the cliff. I want to be the one thinking about how to fix problems and make things happen in life.
Sounds good. Well, you've been very successful at it. Very successful.
Well, that's work, constant work all the time. It never stops. But that's probably good for me. I'm probably a workaholic and have been all my life. And if that's a bad thing, it is what it is. But that's the way it goes.
Well, I think it keeps you out of trouble.
Well, maybe most of the time.
Most of the time. Well, thank you so much for showing us what you have today, Dana. I would definitely love to do a follow-up video when you have an extra hand
Okay.
at your disposal, so we could maybe take a look at some of the animals that might need your hands-on attention. And we're going to link the website and your social media accounts and the videos. And people were really loving this. And I think that, yeah, this was just something a little bit different. I think people are going to really enjoy it. And I also like that they're seeing what the money from Midwest Tonks goes to. I talk about you all the time. I show your products all the time. But for them to see, yes, that it's not just some corporation getting fat and rich off of, us buying the tools, but a huge, amazing conservation cause with you doing pretty much all of the manpower. So that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, the snake bite research we did in Southeast Asia, now they're building their own venom lab. I mean, things that I've been involved with and really got to be involved with, has been a pleasure to me to get to be involved in some of these things. Just like I was telling you about the eagles, just to get a chance to be around such a unique environment for even a year or two or whatever it is. I mean, I'm still filming eagles, and I got a call last weekend to go out. An eagle got hit by a car and busted out a windshield, and we went out and checked on it. And you call the conservation department on a weekend, and they don't answer phones. So we get calls all the time to go out, to help animals, or things are dropped off to us, and we're coordinating with the nature centers, whether it's baby raccoons, foxes. I mean, I could go on and on. You
Right.
never know what it's going to be. But it's just, if you have a compassion for animals, then you're probably that person. And I'm good with that. I enjoy it to a point. Like I said, it's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong, but there's a pleasure in seeing something go from very young and being able to grow up, and the cycle of life is what I call it. Something about that is powerful to me, in my mind anyway.
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely. Well, thank you guys. Well, I thank you since it was just you. I guess I should thank the animals as well for being with us today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you get better soon, and I look forward to part 2 of seeing the Monkey Island Rescue Zoological Sanctuary.
Yep, and if you check out Scaly Adventures, you'll see the eye surgery on
Oh,
the baby and several other things that they've done here as
okay.
well. I took Rick flying up in a powered parachute, which was really cool. They all got to go flying with me, and that's real enjoyable. I still do that when I can get time or whatever in the summertime. Once again, not for everybody, but it's pretty laid back, to be honest. Pretty cool thing.
Awesome.
And keep in mind, monkeys in general don't make good pets. Matter of fact, exotics in general don't make good pets.
Yes.
So there's a handful of us out here that can take care of them and put in the dedication and time, and definitely the money. But definitely research before you get into any kind of animal you want to get. And that even goes for a dog and cat, to be honest. I watch people buy their kid the first dog, and it's a Jack Russell Terrier. Now, for my kids, they were used to getting scratched up and roughed up, and not a big deal. To somebody that's not a dog person, I've seen a beagle jump up on a kid, and they say, it's
Right.
got to go. So you need to do some research and understand what you're getting into, because otherwise that animal may go through a mess trying to, get rehomed and not be just bounced from place to place, which I hate to see them do that. Our
Yes.
dogs, any cats that I've ever had, they're they came from somewhere because they couldn't be there no more. It's stuff we took
Right.
in.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Well, thank you for giving up a whole hour and a half of your afternoon. I know our audience absolutely loved it. Somebody just said this was awesome, loved every moment of it. We've got people from Scotland watching and all over the place. So thank you again, Dana. And I'll visit with you soon.
All right. Thank you for having me on, and you guys have a great day, and thank everybody for your support.
Thank you.